With the 15th pick in the 1996 NBA Draft, the Phoenix Suns select Steve Nash from the University of Santa Clara.
Stoudemire, Arizona's got a chance. Stoudemire, no.
Congratulations, Steve Nash, 2005-2006 NBA Most Valuable Player.
Steve Nash, a sharpshooter, flashy passer, floor general, one of the toughest men in NBA history, an 8-time All-Star, and the most unlikely of players to earn back-to-back Most Valuable Player awards. This is his story. Nash, a man who would turn into one of the greatest Canadian athletes of all time, was born in, you guessed it, South Africa. His family would move to Canada when Nash was 3 years old, where they would spend the rest of his upbringing. The eventual NBA superstar would grow up playing naturally soccer, ice hockey, and rugby, and Nash wouldn't even play competitive basketball until 8th grade, but he was a natural. At St. Michael's University School, Nash would continue to excel in soccer and rugby, but had the most success in basketball, where he led his team to a British Columbia AAA Provincial Championship title, which, from what I can grasp, is equivalent to a state championship for American high schools. Despite the amateur success, Nash only received one collegiate offer.
He took his talent out to California to play with American players to see if he could hang. He did more than that, proving to himself he could play with the best, but no major colleges called his name. Santa Clara would take a chance on him, and the rest is history.
At Santa Clara, Nash would flourish. His freshman year, he led Santa Clara in one of the biggest upsets in NCAA history as the 15-seeded Broncos pulled off the illustrious 15-2 upset against the Arizona Wildcats.
The front of the rim. Missed it. Rebound Stoudemire. Arizona's got a chance. Stoudemire. No. Tipped out.
Nash actually came off the bench and only made one field goal in the contest, but he did make 6 free throws down the stretch to ice the game and be the hero, so legacy? Nash continued to carry the Broncos to the tournament as Santa Clara went dancing 3 out of Nash's 4 years and made it out of the first round twice. Steve would also receive conference honors, becoming the first Bronco to win the West Coast Conference Player of the Year since this guy. Nash entered the NBA draft in 1996 in one of the most stacked draft classes in NBA history, featuring this NBA legend.
Yeah, I'm supposed to be the franchise player, and we're in here talking about practice.
This NBA legend. This Hall of Famer.
James catches, puts up the three. Won't go. Rebound Bosh. Back out to Allen. His three-pointer. Bang! Tie game with 5 seconds remaining.
This multiple-time All-Star.
He missed. Robinson tips it. Marbury has it. Here's Marbury on the drive.
This multiple-time All-Star.
Yes!
This multiple-time All-Star.
Points. Dallas lead. 5.7 seconds to go. Inbound to Peja. Catches. Fire. He got it! Oh my goodness! We are tied!
This multiple-time All-Star. This multiple-time All-Star.
Got it! Sabonis has buried it.
This 5-time NBA champion.
They get it to Fisher. He scores! Derek Fisher scores at the buzzer.
This defensive player of the year.
Oh, what a block by Canby!
And this guy. After seeing many of the aforementioned players come off the board, Nash finally heard his name.
With the 15th pick in the 1996 NBA Draft, the Phoenix Suns select Steve Nash from the University of Santa Clara.
Unfortunately, Nash found out the hard way that the Suns didn't need another point guard. His rookie year, he only averaged 10 minutes per game and found himself as the 4th PG on the depth chart, behind veteran guard Kevin Johnson, as well as Jason Kidd and Sam Cassell. After 2 years of underutilization in Arizona, Phoenix decided to invest in Jason Kidd as their point guard of the future, and Nash was traded to Dallas in exchange for Pat Garrity, Bubba Wells, a first-round pick, and... oh, hey again, Martin. Nash arrived in Dallas with another international counterpart by the name of Dirk Nowitzki. A tandem that just could have easily been a 90s boy band, Nash and Dirk would work the pick and roll to perfection and become a dynamic duo in Dallas. However, they would have to wait a few years to truly emerge. The first year in Dallas was shortened due to a lockout. Nash started every game during that 1998-99 campaign that he was active, but he would miss the final few games that season with back pain that would end up plaguing him throughout his entire career. Headed into the 1999 season, Dallas had high hopes, but Nash suffered an ankle injury and missed 25 games. Dallas possessed a 13-25 record when Nash came back, but it was too little too late for the Mavericks, and despite finishing the year just below 500 at 40-42, Dallas would miss the playoffs. But Maverick fans saw a glimpse into what the duo of Nash and Nowitzki could bring to the table in the future. The next season would be the first time in Nash's career that he made the playoffs as a starter. The Mavericks got past round 1, but fell to the Spurs in the Western Conference semis. We'll be hearing a lot from them. That series also featured this hilarious television blunder.
The one high point for the Mavs. The Mavs weren't expected to even be in the second round. They were underdogs to the Utah Jazz after being down 0-2 to win that one in Salt Lake City.
Steve Nash emerged into a budding star the next 2 seasons. He made his first 2 All-Star appearances alongside Dirk, and the two of them carried Dallas to the playoffs both years. In 2002, they lost to Sacramento in the Western Conference semifinals, and in 2003, Dallas entered the year with high hopes. They made the playoffs as a 3 seed in the West, and the Mavericks went the distance in round 1 against the Portland Trailblazers, defeating Portland in 7 games. They got their revenge on the Kings in Game 7 as well, and found only San Antonio between them and a finals appearance. Unfortunately for Dallas, they wouldn't get a shot at the Larry O'Brien, as Tim Duncan proved too much for Dirk, as the Spurs escaped in 6 games. The 2003-2004 season was a contract year for Nash, and he performed well, averaging 15 points and 9 assists per game. But after getting bounced in the first round of the playoffs, Mark Cuban said, "I'm out." And Dallas let the 30-year-old point guard walk. Reunion was in order, as Nash signed back with the Suns for $63 million over 6 years. Nash instantly became the leader of a young core consisting of Amari Stoudemire, Joe Johnson, Sean Marion, Leandro Barbosa, and Quentin Richardson. In his first year in Phoenix, Nash instantly turned the Suns around from a 29-win team into the best record in the NBA with Mike D'Antoni's 7-second or less offense. Phoenix won 62 games and averaged a decade-high 110 points per game. Nash's instant success in Arizona helped to make his 3rd All-Star team and lead the league in assists. His 15.5 points and 11.5 assists on the league's best team also allowed for him to snatch the MVP trophy, making him only the 2nd ever international MVP after Hakeem Olajuwon, and the 2nd ever MVP to come from the Valley of the Sun, with his predecessor being Charles Barkley. MV Steve immediately showed Dallas what they gave up on, as Phoenix defeated the Mavericks in the Western Conference semifinals, as Nash averaged 30.3 points, 12 assists, and 6.5 rebounds per game in a revenge series. The train stopped there for Phoenix in 2005, as the Suns ran into Nash's nemesis in San Antonio and were bounced in 5 games. Phoenix entered the next season a step below where they left off. After trading Joe Johnson and Quentin Richardson for essentially Boris Diaw and Kurt Thomas, and losing Amari Stoudemire for the year with a knee injury, Phoenix was not expected to be a contender in the likes of what they were last season. But Nash, D'Antoni, and Sean Marion labored on, turning a potentially wasted season into a 54-28 record. Nash, as the leader of this underdog story, beat out Kobe Bryant and earned back-to-back MVP trophies. Nash had career highs in points, rebounds, and field goal percentage to go along with league highs in free throw percentage and assists, marking his way towards the trophy.
You had a great year, great statistics, but your teammates had a great year because of you, and your team won its division. What more could we say? Then congratulations, Steve Nash, 2005-2006 NBA Most Valuable Player.
The playoffs started out rocky for the Suns as they quickly fell behind 3-1 against the Lakers after an iconic Kobe Bryant buzzer beater.
Bryant with the save.
Oh, you're going to get a shot here.
Final seconds. Bryant for the win. Bang!
The Suns strung 3 wins together in a comeback effort to defeat the Lakers in 7, but they weren't done with LA, as it took 7 more games to defeat Elton Brand and the Clippers and set up a rematch of last year's Western Conference semifinals with Dallas, this time in the Western Conference Finals. Nash's old friends in Dallas didn't forget what happened a season prior and came back with a vengeance, as Dirk led his team to the finals in 6 games. In the 2006-2007 season, it was more of the same for Nash. He didn't win the MVP, but he was as close as you can get, earning 2nd place in the voting behind Dirk. In a season in which he put up better statistical numbers than the season prior, the Suns earned the 2 seed in the West and defeated Kobe once again in round 1, but the playoff dramatics were just about to begin. The Suns faced off against the Spurs in the 2007 Western Conference Finals. This series was caked in controversy from start to finish. Game 1 was a tightly contested matchup from wire to wire. Late in the 4th quarter, Nash and Tony Parker collided heads, Parker was left writhing on the floor, and Nash had suffered a large gash on his nose in which blood was profusely pouring out.
Point game. Parker will slow it down. And a foul call on Nash as Parker's shaken up. Nash checking to make sure he's okay. As you see the cut there.
There's Angelo Dundee when you need him. Ferdy Pacheco.
Nasty collision with the 2 bump heads. Got to get the bleeding to stop before they can let him come back in the game.
Nash came back into the game momentarily, but was forced to sub back out after the bleeding resumed. This held him out for the final minute of the contest and allowed the Spurs to escape with a narrow victory in Game 1.
Take care of the bloodish. Nash doing everything to get back in the game, obviously trying to wash out some blood that's gotten in the eyes. That thing just, it won't stop bleeding.
Games 2 and 3 were tame as the team split the contests, but emotions were about to boil over. With the Spurs up 2-1 in the series headed into Game 4, the Suns came back from 11 points down to take a lead late in the 4th quarter. Robert Horry, out of frustration, shoves Nash into the scorer's table and the teams gather in a scuffle.
Played by Barbosa. And here is Nash being chased, and they had him all look out. As Horry sent Nash flying, and Bell goes at Horry. Nash got up. He wants to go at Horry. The Suns did not appreciate the foul by Robert Horry.
Amari Stoudemire and Boris Diaw got up off the bench to protect their teammate. Neither of which had any intention of fighting, neither of which got close to any Spurs player, and both of which cooperated when Suns coaches immediately ushered them back to the bench. Nonetheless, Diaw and Stoudemire were suspended for game number 5, along with Horry.
Well, you see Stoudemire coming into the play, and the coaches sending he and Boris Diaw back to that bench area. The question is, were they on the court or not? And you talk about a young mistake. If indeed Stoudemire was on the floor, which looks like the league will have to look at very closely, and that could cost Phoenix Amari Stoudemire in Game 5.
In a decisive Game 5, even without 2 key players, the Suns held an 11-point lead midway through the 4th quarter, but let it slip away down the stretch and dropped the crucial Game 5. The Spurs would go on to take Game 6 and the series. This series is one chocked full of controversy and has been at the forefront of conspiracy talks for the last decade plus. The Suns proved to be the toughest foe on San Antonio's way to a championship, and many believe this was Nash's best chance at securing the title. 2007-2008 was a down year for Nash, in which he only made the All-NBA second team, and finished only 9th in the MVP voting. Nash found another running mate in the middle of the season in the form of Shaquille O'Neal, and led his team to a 55-27 record. But in a loaded Western Conference, even though they were only 2 games back of the 1-seeded Lakers, Phoenix ended up with the 6th seed, which matched them up once again against San Antonio. After 5 toughly fought games, the Suns couldn't reach the cusp, and dropped yet another series to the Spurs. Nash was liable for the Game 5 loss as he committed 2 costly turnovers in the final 2 minutes, and the Suns ended up packing. The 08-09 season was a disastrous fall from grace for Nash and the Suns. Mike D'Antoni was fired for lack of playoff success and was replaced by Terry Porter, who immediately made changes. He shifted to a defensive-oriented game plan, he traded away Boris Diaw and Raja Bell in exchange for Jason Richardson, and Nash missed out on the All-Star game for the first time since arriving in Phoenix. Despite holding a 28-23 record going into the All-Star break, Porter was fired in favor of Alvin Gentry, and even though the Suns finished the year at 46-36 and finished second in the Pacific Division, Phoenix missed out on the 8th seed in a loaded Western Conference and had to watch the playoffs from the couch. Phoenix rebounded the next year. They jumped out to the best start in Suns history and kept the momentum going. Nash bounced back and was named an All-Star starter, and the Suns earned a 3 seed in the West and were rolling into the playoffs once again. After defeating the Portland Trailblazers in round 1, Phoenix was faced with a familiar foe in Tim Duncan and the Spurs. Nash's face once again took a beating in this series when an inadvertent elbow by Tim Duncan left Nash's right eye swollen shut. Despite the injury to Nash's face, Phoenix overcame the Spurs for the first time, defeating them in a 4-game sweep where Nash dominated and got the monkey off his back. But right around the corner was another chimpanzee in the form of the Lakers. After splitting the first 4 games with LA, Game 5 came down to the wire. A Meta World Peace put-back buzzer beater at the end of regulation gave the Lakers the advantage in the series that took the wind out of the Suns' sails.
Will throw in.
Lakers jumped out to a big lead in Game 6, but even though there was a comeback attempt by Phoenix to put them within fighting distance, the Suns couldn't complete the comeback and fell short to the eventual champions once again. 2010-2011 boded for many changes in Phoenix. The Suns traded away key pieces in Amari Stoudemire to New York, Leandro Barbosa to Toronto, Jason Richardson to Orlando, and Goran Dragic to Houston. Nash played well, but the team expectedly struggled, and they missed the playoffs for the second time since Nash arrived in Arizona. The strike-shortened 2011-2012 season would prove to be Nash's last in Phoenix. He made his final All-Star game, but missed the playoffs once again. The aging Nash had been playing through back pain for the last few seasons, and the Phoenix front office believed it was time to sell their star and dive into rebuilding mode. Phoenix would trade Nash to his rivals in the Los Angeles Lakers for 2 firsts and 2 second-round picks. Nash found himself sleeping with the enemy in 2012 as he joined a star-studded yet aging Lakers team which featured Kobe Bryant, Dwight Howard, Pau Gasol, Meta World Peace, and reunited Nash with Coach D'Antoni. The Lakers were immediately perceived as title contenders, but did not come anywhere near expectations and finished as the 7th seed, where Nash ran into San Antonio once again and was swept out of the playoffs. Nash's injuries were a major reason why the season was a disappointment, as he fractured his fibula, which held him out for 24 games, and missed the final 8 games of the regular season and first 2 games of the playoffs with back spasms.
Purple and gold will be back next year. And a disappointing way to end, and please don't ever forget the memory of Dr. Jerry Buss.
Star-studded aging Lakers were plagued with injuries, and when Nash collided with Kirk Heinrich in a game against Chicago, the two-time MVP couldn't recover. Nash only participated in 15 games of what would be his final season in uniform. Nash tried to lace him up the next season, but his back pain would only get worse and hold him out for all 82 games. Nash realized the pain would not subside, and he called it quits on his playing career. Nash would end his career as an 8-time All-Star, 7-time All-NBA, 5-time assist champion, and 2-time MVP. But the elephant in the room has always been the lack of championships. Nash always had two hurdles in his career in the form of the Lakers and the Spurs, and once David topped one of his Goliaths, there was always the other right around the corner with a slingshot, keeping Nash from achieving NBA dominance. Nash would get his rings in his post-playing career as a consultant for the Golden State Warriors, but his legacy of his playing career will always be partnered with an asterisk.